Hi, League family. This is Molly Yoder. I'm your membership director, and I'm so excited to be back with you again so soon. We are going to be talking today with JT Tapias, who is the owner of Fit Method 413 down in Tampa, and also has partnered with us to do a custom Gospel of John for his business. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time with him, let him tell you a little bit more about his story. It's incredible, and maybe hear some tips from him on ways that you can leverage your own platform that God has given you to share the gospel and see more people come to Christ. So without further ado, JT, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Molly, thank you so much for having me on here. Well, I'm not sure where you want me to start. There's so much to the story. I know it can get a little long, and I'm not sure how much time we have on here. Where would you like me to start? Would you like me to start from my testimony, or
briefly your testimony and maybe why you decided to partner with us and do a custom Gospel of John?
Sure. So I'll give you a quick brief just synopsis of my testimony. 33, I came to Christ. I was basically a worldly man for that long. I had all sorts of situations going on, dependencies. At that point in my life, I had pretty much become an atheist. I grew up going to church here and there, but that was never really relevant in my life. At 33, things came crashing down for me. I thought that I was at a point in my life where I had arrived. Everything the world says you should have, I had. Yet I still had this void in me, and I couldn't understand it. And I was searching for different, in different belief systems and different things. I got immersed in the world of personal development for 10 years, got a bunch of life coaching certifications, neurolinguistic programming certifications, and I achieved a lot through that. Yet there was still a void. There was this unhappiness in me. So at the age of 33, a great friend who I know truly loved me, was bold enough to share the gospel with me in an elevator. I had maybe a handful of interactions with him. I lightly call him a friend because we just, we were acquaintances. We would bump into each other, and he just seemed like a genuine guy, great guy. One Sunday morning, I woke up. I was in the midst of my dependencies. I was hungover. I was depressed, and I was writing a suicidal letter. He popped in my head, thought about him, gave him a call, and I said, "Hey, I don't know what you could do for me, but I don't think I have another 2 days left in me." Wow. He quickly ran downstairs, sat across from me, and basically said, "Let me tell you what God's doing in my life." And I remember this knot just like in my throat, where I was just, I was so disappointed that he had said that. I said, "You're going to have to give me something else because I don't believe in God." And I remember him standing up really firm and looking at me in the eye and saying with so much conviction, he said, "God is all I have for you." And I was like, okay. And so he said, "Well, what are you doing tonight?" I said, "Well, I was going to kill myself, but if you have better plans, let's go do that." And he kind of took a deep breath, and we went to church that night. We walked into this beautiful building. I had preconceived notions about the church because all the other places I had been to were pretty religious. This looked like a pretty laid back place, modern building. And I saw two things I loved: a Starbucks and pretty women. And I said, I'm in.
Nice.
Yeah, walked in, and I remember the pastor coming on stage, and looked like a normal guy. He had a family. I said, "Okay, I can relate to this." He preached that night on the book of Job, and it hit me like a lightning bolt. Everything he was saying, except being a righteous man, I could resonate with. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Cool, that was a great story." I looked at my buddy. I said, "Okay, let's go." And he said, "No, we're going to the prayer team." So we went up to the prayer team. I went up to this guy, really young, innocent-looking guy. The Hanson brothers back in the 90s.
Yeah.
This is what this guy looked like, and so I was like, "Oh, great! What is this guy going to do for me?" And so he said, "What are we praying for?" And I remember just like letting it all out. Like I just said, "I have this, that. I don't believe in God. I want to kill myself. I have no idea why I'm here." And I remember him. So he took a deep breath. He said, "Wow!" He started praying for me. I'm a psych major, so I kind of put everyone in their little psychological box, and I'm like, okay, I see what's happening here. There's this, placebo effect going on, and I was trying to rationalize everything, but what I felt shortly after that was just undeniable, and it just broke through all my unbelief. And I know now that God doesn't necessarily deal with everyone the same, but He knows every man's heart, and He knew where I was, and I needed something that would really knock me off my horse on the way to Damascus, right? Mm-hmm. So I felt just this energy come through my body that I had never felt before. I was a mess. I started bawling my eyes out. Because I've always owned gyms, and you always carry yourself with this persona of an alpha male, I wasn't quick to cry in front of anyone, especially in front of this handsome brother. So, I just broke down and I was crying and I remember clearly, and I still get the chills when I think about this, in the world, I had achieved lots of things and that had brought lots of happiness to my life. But for the first time in my life, I felt joy. I felt true joy. And it's been 7 years, but I still get emotional about it because, man, it was just this gripping situation that I had never felt in my life. I felt love from friends and family, but I had never felt that unconditional love that I felt that day, in that room. And I had no theological background. All I can remember is, not audibly, but in my heart, this overwhelming voice saying, "You're new. You're going to be restored. I love you. I love you. I love you," is all I kept hearing. And, that overwhelming sensation knocked all my dependencies out from one day to the next. I dropped alcohol, dropped my addiction to drugs that had creeped up on me very slowly but surely. I stopped chasing women. I started looking at kids differently, wanted to settle down and have a family. I was the guy that I would see a guy pushing a stroller and I'd make fun of him. I'm like, who does that to themselves, And, shortly.
I hate to interrupt you, JT, but if you're just joining us, we're talking with JT, who owns a gym down in Tampa. He's sharing a little bit about his story and a little bit about why God called him back into ministry, really, through the gym, and to get custom Gospels of John and to use those. So just wanted to welcome any newcomers that we have. I think Carmen's here. Hi, Carmen and Frank, and we are so glad you guys are making time with us. So, but wow. So walk us through this a little bit, JT, coming from that incredible story of God just pulling you back off the edge through this buddy of yours to today, where you really have a thriving ministry in the four walls of your gym.
Yeah, so I quickly, I'm a choleric. If you know anything about the temperaments, I'm like a driving temperament, and so just how I had approached business, I approached the ministry. A mentor of mine said, the enterprising spirit in you will get you in trouble. This is a pastor friend of mine, because the minute I got saved, Christ came to live, in me. The Holy Spirit came to live in me. I wanted to go straight into ministry, but I hadn't read the book of Genesis yet. And, so God quickly put a break to that. And it was 2 years of my desert time. I sold my business. I basically gave it away because I wanted to go into the ministry. I had this plan, but that didn't work out. So for 2 years, I sat there looking at my apartment, ceiling, trying to figure things out, praying, fasting, asking for God's will. And I said, God, I don't care where you put me. I just want to serve you. And it was close to those 2 years. A lot of great things happened in that desert time in those 2 years. I met my wife. We married 4 months after. We met and we got married 4 months after meeting.
Wow.
And I started getting worried because I wanted to be a provider, yet I wasn't making any income. And here I am married and I'm feeling really stressed. And so I'm praying hard. And I remember clearly God speaking to me, not audibly, but in my heart, saying, you had a ministry and you gave it up. He was talking about the gym. And in a very argumentative way, I said, well, God, that's cute, but I don't have the money to go back into it. And he said, I'll provide. And I had people, I kid you not, like a week later, people calling me out of the blue saying, why don't you start your gym again? You were so great at it. You were great with people. My wife was one of the people that came with her savings. She said, I believe in you. And we started Fit Method 413. I remember clearly praying. I said, okay, God, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to show me how to do it, because I don't see the correlation between, the Bible and the dumbbells. Like, how does this all tie in, right? I know most people coming through the door want abs, but I don't know if they want Jesus, And so, yeah. So he said, this place ought to be a lighthouse for me. And in that process, he brought an amazing man of God, a missionary. Him and his wife were missionaries to Cuba. Coach Bill Sugg just brought amazing components to just connecting to people in a very I wouldn't use the word stealth, but in a relational discipleship way. And to this day, we have a running joke that we lead more people to the Lord doing squats and lunges than most churches any Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so that's been the case for us. We, partnering with you guys, the Pocket Testament was just an extension of connecting to people and giving them something tangible that they could actually take home with them and reflect on. And it's been a great opener. It's so funny because I know I keep talking. Stop me whenever you want.
This is great.
So just today, and I don't say this to pat myself on the shoulder. If I do lots of stuff like this, I don't mention it, but I think it's good for this conversation.
Sure.
So it's my wife's birthday. I took the day off to hang out with her and my daughter, and it was pouring cats and dogs. I don't know where you are, Molly, but it's been raining crazy here in Florida. Mm-hmm. So I look over to the right and I see this lady with an umbrella, and it is pouring down rain. I just see her walking down the street. So I pulled the window down and I said, "Hey, do you need a ride?" And she kind of looked at my wife and she said, "Well, I guess he's with his wife, so he's safe."
Yeah.
She jumps in the car. She tells me that she's going to go register her 5-year-old daughter for kindergarten, but she has to walk 3 miles. So we take her to the school. She goes inside, registers her daughter. We wait for her outside, take her back home, and I had my Pocket Testament in the car with me. So, I said, "Look," I said, "Do you believe in God?" She said, "Absolutely." I said, "Great." I said, "Here's the Gospel of the Gospel of John. Here's my information. If you ever run into a situation like that again, please call us." And, I said, "Nice to meet you." She walked out. But this gives us such an opportunity for people that already are believers to, I don't know about you, but whenever I encounter a Christian that's doing what a Christian is called to do, it makes me more firm in my beliefs.
Sure.
And it allows me to withstand the storms, because there are plenty of those. And I can tell you a little bit more about something that happened yesterday at the gym. On the flip side of things, there's a lot of positive things, but once in a while we get thrown under the bus.
Sure. And I think that like what you're going back to is when you live out your faith, when you're expressing kindness, when you're loving others well, that opens doors. And to be able to then insert a Gospel of John that has the actual Word of God, mm-hmm. Jesus' testimony from himself, I think that just adds so much more to that interaction and to those seeds that are planted. And so how cool that you were able to do that, and that God was able to use this disgusting weather that is pummeling the East Coast to be able to do that for us. Sure. I would love, Jake, just in the last couple minutes that we have together, if you could tell them a little bit about maybe one of the connections and transformed lives that you've gotten to see at the gym as you've built that relationship out. And just a note to anybody that's tuning in, we're talking with JT. He is a good friend of the ministry of the Pocket Testament League. He's actually partnered with us and done a custom Gospel of John. And if you are like, "Hey, that's me, I have a business and I could be doing these same kinds of exchanges that JT's having," feel free to go to ptl.org/partner, and we would love to chat with you and get you started. So, speaking of building relationships, JT has opportunities to build relationships all the time on his cell phone, on Facebook and at the gym. No, you're fine. Could you tell us a little bit about maybe one of those powerful relationships and what God's done as you've been able to use your gym as a platform?
Sure. So I have tons of those. I'll give you the most recent one. The most recent one was a couple. This couple had a baby together. They were, living out of wedlock. They were experiencing a lot of friction in their relationship. One of them came to me and said, "Is there any way you can disciple my boyfriend?" And so I said, "Sure, not a problem." This came from me handing her a Gospel of John, and her kind of looking at that and saying, "Wow, you have a lot of things in common with my boyfriend. Would you mind talking to him?" So I took the man through a 7-step discipleship program that I have. We do this virtually. We do it through Zoom. And on his third meeting, he accepted Christ. And man, it was just so incredible. We're getting him ready for baptism. He immediately separated from his girlfriend's room and went to live in the other side of the house. They just got married. He finally gave in. I biblically explained to him why, he was out of God's will and all these things, and he was very receptive. So now they're married. They're both getting ready to get baptized. And then the best part of that is I had an actual Bible study here at my house, and I got to hear him share the gospel with another man that is still on the fence. And in such a beautiful way that I was just like, wow, like this is what we're called to do. We're called to share this message and then duplicate that with others.
Disciples making disciples is what we were talking about yesterday on the Facebook Live. So how cool that you got a front row seat to that, man.
It was amazing.
That is amazing.
One last thing I wanted to share with you, because I think it's only fair, I think, that I share the positive and then some of the stuff that seems negative, but it's not.
Yeah.
We had a gentleman come in yesterday to our gym, and he did a trial session. I followed up with him later that afternoon to see how his session went. He said, when you get a chance, please call me. I called him and he said, hey, session was fine. I have nothing against your coach. He's a good coach. He says, but I didn't realize you guys were a faith-based business. And I saw the scriptures on the wall, and that just didn't sit well with me at all. And I don't jive with this, and I'm willing to pay for this free trial session, but please take me off the schedule because I'm never coming back. And I said, we have people from so many different walks of life, different faiths. We don't encroach in that. We don't impose on their belief systems. This is just what we stand for. We're here to serve, help, but we're never going to share that with you unless you inquire about it. And he said, yeah, it's not for me. And I said, okay. He says, you can charge me. I said, no, that's fine. This is part of what we do. It's free. It's on us. If you ever change your mind, call us back. So then I sent him a list of 4 of our competitors, and I said, here are 4 other gyms that are great, and I think it would be a great fit for you. And so finally this morning he responded, and he said, thank you so much for the references. I posted this on my Facebook wall. It's created over, I think, like 70 comments left and right. And anyway, it's been really interesting to see people from all walks of life like chime in and hear their belief systems. Ultimately, my passion comes from the fact that I was a broken man on my way to the grave. And I'm not saying I'm perfect today, but I stumble forward. I have a beautiful family. I have a beautiful daughter. I look into her eyes, and I know it's a gift straight from the Lord, because me and my own will and my own sinful self, I was so caught up in myself that I would have never made that decision. And so that's where my passion stems from. It's not, a lot of these comments were like, oh, you're being critical of other faiths. And I said, absolutely not. I said, I just know that Jesus is the way. And that's what it was for me. And I can only speak for myself. And so that's where that stems from. The Pocket Testament has been an incredible way to connect with people, for them to take something home with them, because one-on-one interactions, sometimes people forget, but if they have something to take home with them, they'll go back into it.
And I think what's great about that story is that there was a stand that was taken there. And we have another partner up in Rocky Mount, and he actually shared how he had a customer that was resistant, just like this gentleman was, and said, take these. He puts his custom gospels in every shipment that goes out of his factory. And
Wow.
They said, take these out of my shipment. You're wasting your time. I don't believe in that. Well, over time, they loved well. They conducted their business well. And this person knew to reach back out to our business partner in a time of life crisis. And he had the privilege of actually leading that gentleman to the Lord. And it all started with that outward stand that he was taking of the inward faith choices that he had made. So
Totally.
Very cool. Just as we wrap up, a couple of things I wanted to just ask. First of all, JT, any advice or thoughts for anyone who's maybe considering their own custom gospel? Anything you'd like to share with them about that?
like I said before, I think it's a great, if that's what your business, if your business stands for Christ, before I even got to know the gospel, the Pocket Testament, I would always share the Gospel of John. People would ask me, where do I start? And I always say the Gospel of John, the Gospel of John. So that's such a great way to navigate those, I call them interesting waters in the beginning, because everything is so new, you don't know what's what. Handing that tangible piece of great literature to them, and tying that to your business, really, I think it does something for people, because people realize that, you can jeopardize a deal. If that person doesn't, like this person, right, doesn't jive, this person that came in doesn't jive with your belief systems, they can just walk away. I think the biggest testimony for this man that walked away was, wow, he was willing to walk away from money for this belief system. And that seed alone is one that I know that at some point is going to produce fruit. So having that and handing it to someone and letting them know that you're so committed to the cause of Christ, being Christ-centered in everything you do, it shows what you stand for. It shows that you're committed, and and when you took the time to actually create your own custom one, I mean, it says a lot about who you are.
That's well said. Well said. And I wanted to also give a shout out to the League family as a whole. We actually shipped out more than 5,000 gospels today as part of the 500,000 gospel sharing campaign that you guys are all involved in, and seeing 500,000 gospels shared across America and Canada this summer. So way to go. You guys stepped up and responded big from our Tip Tuesday, and we are so excited to see what God's going to continue to do. So that was a huge praise. Keep it up. If you've got friends or family that maybe haven't heard about the League yet, this is a great time to let them know about these Gospels of John and the resourcing that we do and the community that we're building around sharing your faith in everyday practical ways. When a stranger is caught in a rainstorm, or if somebody walks through the doors of your business, how can we translate those into opportunities to give them the best news that they'll ever receive? So thank you so much for making time to spend with us, especially on your wife's birthday. Wish her a happy birthday from us, JT.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys for tuning in today. And we will be back next Tuesday for another Tip Tuesday next week. And would love any feedback that you have on specific ideas that you can see shared on our week do things together. So stay.
Awesome. You're breaking up a little bit, but I'm assuming you're saying bye.